Assalamu alaikum. Glad to be here with all of you. We are going to be talking about a really important topic today. We're actually talking about ancient Egyptian medicine. And the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of my patients know, a lot of people know that I collect actually ancient medical artifacts, right? Ranging whether it's the Canada medicine, going into some of the Ayurvedic type things, but we wanted actually to bring up the importance of Egyptian medicine because it does carry over until today, and especially we could even see how even the Canada medicine, which pretty much what the Nature's First Path practice is focused on, but a lot of information related to the humors comes out of Egypt, right? And even Greek medicine learned from the Egyptians, right? So we're actually going to be kind of breaking that down just a little bit more. We're just giving it a little bit time for everybody to come in. Hope all is doing well. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep going from there. Okay, sound good? But why ancient Egypt, right? Why ancient Egypt? Well, for so many reasons. The culture is thousands and thousands of years old, but we are finding a lot of those medical um, techniques and understandings have survived us and have some benefit to us today, right? How so? Right? The Ebers papyrus is still being referenced. We will talk about that in a little bit, but kind of wanted to give the backdrop. So, what we know as quote unquote holistic healing, a lot of it is based on ancient Kemetic or ancient Egyptian, right? Arabian, and even some type of Indian medicines coming out of the Ayurvedic. But we're talking about actually Egyptian medicine today. So that's what we're really talking about, right? Because when the ancient Egyptians prescribed medicines, or take off my glasses, or talked about herbs and food, it was set up on the fact that you are actually enhancing your temple, right? So they would meditate in temples, but then they talked about the true temple is you, right? The true temple is the body. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yep. And thank you, Dr. Akar. I'll be actually giving a talk on Unani medicine and Tibbet Nabawi coming up, right? But I definitely wanted to kind of talk about this because even Ibn Sina and even some of the Unani and Islamic doctors did talk about, right, the importance of Misr, or what we call Egypt, right, Egyptian medicine. So, we hear that term, your body is the temple, that comes out of an Egyptian actually understanding, or if we wanted to translate it into Arabic, out of Misr, right? So, and that's even kind of how the same way that Tibbet Nabawi is set up, right? Everything that the Prophet ﷺ talked about was to enhance, right, your masjid, your qalb, your mind, right, to better be suited. Okay, so we want to get a real understanding of the fact that Egyptian medicine, a lot of it was codified through Imhotep, right? Imhotep. And I'm going to put a link to this. You can read about it more. But Ibn Imhotep, also trained in the Egyptian mystery schools and the African Escapalius temples, right? Formed under King Zoser. Well, he learned about naturopathy. He learned about massage. He learned about all of the humor work, right, that we know in the canon of medicine, right? And a lot was happening in Memphis around 2000 BCE or before Common Era, right? Before Common Era. And speaking of energy work, we hear a lot of terms about life force and energy. And, in traditional Chinese medicine, they've known it as qi. In Ayurvedic, they talked about prana. But also in Africa, there was a term for life force, and that was also known as niyama. All right. And I did a post on my Instagram page related to niyama, right? So we kind of broke down the fact that Imhotep, although he was a builder, although he was a scholar, he was also known as being a skilled physician, right? And he learned all of those things coming out of Africa, right? Or in the clearly Africa, but we call the mystery schools, okay? So a lot of things have built on out of that knowledge because when they were working with the temple, they also learned how to work with internal energy. And we'll talk about that in a moment because now energy medicine is quote unquote big, but in the practice of energy medicine goes back thousands and thousands of years, right? Now, after Imhotep, kind of codified and built up what we know as quote unquote Egyptian medicine, later the Greeks came along, right? Notably through Galen and Hippocrates. They actually spent some time in Egypt. That's well documented. Okay, and then they took the knowledge of the humoral, right, theory, the hot, the wet, the cold, the dry, and brought that to Greece, right? The later Greeks were given the, I guess, the accolades for that, but actually it comes from Africa, okay? Right, that knowledge of elemental medicine, so important, okay? So for the Egyptian doctor, it wasn't just a matter of getting their degree and learning the organs and knowing what foods and herbs. Yes, that all was all important, but they also had to understand healing, and they had to know that they were also the conduit for health and healing. Right? They had to be healed, and they had to emit healing, so to speak, if you know what we're saying. So they had to understand all organs were related to each other and that energy intersects and hit those organs at specific times and times of the day, seasons of the year, so many different circumstances. So as we see, Egyptian medicine wasn't just about the herbal part of it, it wasn't just about the nutrient part of it, but it was also about understanding niyama, life force, energy, and everything in between. Okay, so a lot has changed, obviously, since then, but we wanted to take this moment, take this time to highlight and shout out the fact that what? Surgery was being done in Africa, massage was being done in Africa, herbology was being done in Africa, naturopathy was being done, right, in Africa. Um, the understanding of life force also within Africa. So there's a lot to go on that we have to be cognizant of, right? So a big part of that knowledge was codified in the Herbert's Papyrus, right, which was written about 2100 years, give or take, before the canon of medicine, kind of laying that foundation. They're all important, right? We're not saying one is more important than the other, but we want to highlight, give credit where credit is due, and to codify everything. So we covered quite a bit, but what are we saying? To be a doctor in Egypt at that time, they had to be healed and they had to emit the energy of healing to all the different organs, right? And they knew that everything was connected: thoughts, actions, foods, herbs, exercise, lack of exercise, sleep. Everything around them brought up that life force, right? So, yeah, kind of taking it, of course, you know, I got to add something about the Sufism, the Sawuf in there. You know, we talked about the canon of medicine that came later, and this is what some of the Sufi tariqas, right, the Muslim doctors, the sheikhs, the practitioners understood when having their students work on their Lataif or chakra system. So that's coming from the Sufi perspective, and we'll talk about that in a little bit further detail. Because when you have Basira, well, Basira or true vision comes out of aligning those Lataif. And how do we align those Lataif? Knowing about the healing, knowing about the energy. So a lot there. Dr. Scott here, Nature's First Path. More coming down the line. Thank you all, everybody who joined us, and we'll be on the lookout for more. Talk to you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.